Made a video the other day about World War II and my fascination with it. And the people I enjoy talking to back when I was younger were World War II veterans and getting their personal accounts. And I made a short video about that, and I'm sitting here thinking about it coming to work today, and I got another one for you. This one also comes from a German soldier, actually, and a little background to it. In 1941, the Germans invaded the island of Crete, which is in the Mediterranean. It's a long east-west island, very thin but long, arid, rocky, mountainous. It was defended by British troops, Commonwealth troops, and some local yokels. The Germans did an airborne assault. They ultimately took the island and took really high casualties, and that kind of was the nail in the coffin for the Germans using airborne troops because the casualties were so high. But once the battle was over, Crete turned into a backwater. I mean, there were some dust-ups, but generally speaking, nothing happened after they took it. It was just an occupation force. And the only thing left on the island were women, children, and guys that were outside of military age. And the guy I talked to, the veteran, he was, like I said, he was in the German army. And I don't remember when I talked to him. I remember I was still a teenager. I don't really remember who or where, but I remember the story he told. He was not a combat troop. He was an administrative guy, an office guy. When I was in the army, we called him office pukes. And he just did administrative kind of things, ran a desk. And in a war, you got to have, ammunition, fuel, weapons, blah, 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 blah. Well, food is also a weapon in a war zone. And you can have all the weapons in the world. You don't have food, you lose. It's period. So during the time, the population of Crete back then was not very high. And they're trying to struggle. The civilians there are trying to struggle to survive, just to feed themselves. You got, like I said, a wife, woman, kids, no parent or no adult around, no father, the workforce is gone. So it's a struggle. So this guy gets assigned to Crete, and in his capacity, he had access to all the supplies and all the equipment and all the whatnots that were being shipped in. And a laundry day rolls around, and he puts on his backpack, puts all his dirty clothes in his backpack, and heads out off base and starts walking up into the hills. And what you basically have are small houses on a small plot of land, and one house to the next, you really can't see each other. They're spread out. So he's heading up a dirt road. And then you branch off, and there's a house out there in a field, and they grow something in Crete, not like fruits and veggies, but like olives and weird trees, just because the climate really doesn't accommodate a lot of produce and stuff, but little settlements with little farms. Then he kind of checked one out, and he walked up the hill a little further, and the trail's getting smaller and smaller, and eventually it gets down to a goat path, just a single-foot goat path, and he walks up, comes over hill, and then there's a house. About 100 yards away, he can see a small house. Now, at that time, I don't know what's going on in Crete right now, but at the time, people in that area did not live in their houses. They may have gone in bad weather. They may have slept there. But generally speaking, people lived outside of their house. They lived under the trees. They had park benches, wood benches, and chairs, and they basically lived outdoors. That's just the way they did it back then. So this guy comes over the hill. He's towards the top of this ridge, and he looks over, sees a house. There's a woman, late 20s, early 30s, two little kids running around, and he stands there and watches. There's nobody else around. He says, okay, this might work. And so he stands there long enough until they notice him. So here he is, a German soldier, staring at him. So the woman grabs her little kids, they run indoors. He walks over, sets his laundry bag down next to their table, under the trees, sets down 2 cans of food, something from the supply. I don't know what it was, just 2 big cans, set it down, and he turns around and leaves. Doesn't talk to him, doesn't engage him, doesn't say anything, just leaves. He comes back the next day, it's about the same time in the afternoon, looks up, woman's running around, little kids are doing their thing. They take one look at him, they turn and run indoors. He walks over, his clothes are all clean and dried and folded and sitting on the table. And there's a sugar bowl. And this is back in the days. When I was a kid, we had a sugar bowl on the kitchen table. A little bowl with a little notch in the lid and a spoon sticking out of it. They don't really do that anymore, but up to that point, up to at least the 70s, everybody had a sugar bowl. Well, next to his pile of clothes was the sugar bowl with the lid off, and it was empty, which is their sign of, we need sugar. He's like, all right, and he leaves. He comes back a week later, same routine. He stops, stands there until they see him. They go indoors. He sets his laundry bag down. He poured sugar, filled up their sugar bowl, almost a pound, and left. Went back. Now, these aren't they're kind of enemy of each other, but they're not. You know, it's like it's an occupation force and a local indigenous population. They don't really get along. But this guy did this for 4 years and never talked to these people. Just kind of made an unofficial truce, an unofficial business transaction between this family and him. And he watched these kids get bigger. And again, never spoke to them, never got close enough to them to really get a good look at them. And it went on for 4 years. And he was always bringing food, sometimes cigarettes, because everybody back then smoked, and cigarettes are a currency. Well, back then they were. It was a very popular currency. Well, the war ends. There was a huge delay with the British coming back to the island and getting the Germans and sending them home. There was like a 2-week delay after the war ended before the Allies ever showed up. So during that time, he continued to do his laundry. And then the day came when the Brits showed up. There wasn't a lot of hostility. They just said, put your weapons over here. We're going to process you and we're going to get you guys out of here. And they said, all right, tomorrow your groups, we're sending you back to Germany. So this guy went into the supply tent with 4 huge backpacks, filled up every food item he could possibly put in these bags, walked up the hill, stood there. They saw him. They ran indoors. He walked over, set down the bags, the 4 bags of miscellaneous food items, and turned around and left. And as he was leaving, he went to that spot where he goes over the hill. And for the very first time in 4 years, he turned around and looked back at them. And they were frantically going through the bags, setting the cans on the table. And then they all stopped and stared at each other for a little while. And he waved, and they waved back. The acknowledgement that, there's no laundry to be done. Here's what I can give you. I'm out of here. And he left, and he never went back, never talked to him, never met him, never went back to Crete. That was just his unofficial thing that he did during the war. And I thought that was a really neat story to hear. But, I don't know, kind of a human connection between somewhat enemies and somewhat not. And those are the stories that I enjoyed hearing. And I want to pass that on. I want other people to hear that. To know there was, humanity floating around. All right. Have a great day.